That's good. And yeah, so I just leave.
Yeah, you're good. Yep, good to go. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, Emma.
I feel,
Huh,
I don't.
I do, but. But he said we have a quorum, so that's what he was wondering.
Yeah, that would be recusing on Rockies. But we
Yeah.
still have a, still have enough.
Yeah.
This becomes.
Yeah. And then, okay, this. Right.
Only happens like once every.
Then, Blake, are you good with chairing?
I'm
Yes,
going
I
to-
can.
Oh,
I think I,
Okay.
do you want me to
Perfect.
chair, Blake?
I happily yield to you in the room. Yeah.
I would have no problem punting. Okay, I'll do it.
okay.
Appreciate that.
And then.
I think my
yeah,
audio is cutting in and out just a little bit too, so that'll probably be better. Appreciate that.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Blake. And then, just give me one moment here while we let these things load. I apologize. Agenda. Okay, we can begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will call the May 25th, 2023 City of Watertown Board of Adjustment meeting to order. Could I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Golly.
Here.
Case,
Here.
Aletsky, present, Dargis Johnson. Ford,
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
and Culhane, Spire,
Yes.
Brink are absent. We have a quorum. And so with this, with Board of Adjustment items for variances, it will have to be a two-thirds vote of the members present.
Full membership of the board.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I'm butchering this. Of the full membership of the board. So we have 6 members here out of 7. So we would need, Jana, do you have this?
5 votes.
5 votes for an approval. And then for conditional uses, it is the members present, 2/3 of that. So it would be 4 votes for an approval. So applicants can take that into consideration, and if you wish to withdraw your application, please do so when your item comes up on the agenda prior to discussion.
Thank you, Brandy. Could I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Could I get a motion to approve the May 4th, 2023 minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve. I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Could I, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed, all those opposed say nay. Motion passes. We are now on to our regular agenda, item number 5A. The board consideration of a conditional use request for storage units at 107 11th Street Northeast in the R3 multifamily district. We will be having a public hearing and then board action on this request. Randy, could you give us some background?
Yes, thank you, Todd. So this is a conditional use request for storage units in the R3 multifamily residential district. If you recall, this same property, located at 107 11th Street Northeast, was brought forth to the Plan Commission for the rezone request, where it was zoned C2 local commercial, and then was rezoned, and that was approved also. It was recommended by Plan Commission and approved by City Council. That was on May 1st, at the May 1st meeting. So this property had existing storage units located on it. Now, with it being rezoned, and presumably they had gotten a conditional use previously, because storage units are also a conditional use in the C2 district that it was previously zoned. But now that it is rezoned to R3, storage units are a conditional use in the R3 district. So it is really just allowing this use to continue. And then also, as it is redeveloped, because the reason for the rezone to R3 was to allow for multifamily apartment buildings. And so if they want to do a mixture of allowing for the storage units as well, they exist there today. And so this is really just allowing that use to continue. And then that they would be able to move forward with further development when they are ready to do so. So with that, I'll stand by with for any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Brandy. Is there any questions of Brandy from the board at this time?
I have just a couple. So there's no set time for them to build apartments, right? As long as they have it's good to go because it's R3 now.
Yep.
And then at that time, or at what time, do we address like the signage and the lighting? I think there's side box lighting on the buildings now, right? I don't think we have any overheads.
Yep. Well, I can't confirm that, but when they do come to redevelop, then we would look at the site as a whole.
So nothing gets touched until they come with the building permit for the apartments. That's what I'm asking.
And that's not, well, yes and no. I mean, technically, if they can do everything that they're doing right now, it's a non-conforming use because they don't have it properly zoned, correct?
Yes.
But my point is, I think last time I talked about the driveway, it's kind of a free for all in and out of there. Is this the appropriate time to ask that be narrowed down or a designated drive into that instead of just?
We would do
No.
that at the time of, now, I think that you could at this point, because it's a conditional use.
But I
You
would,
can add that condition, because then you know that it's going to get done, means that you're allowing it today. Because if they never come in and ask for a subsequent building permit, then it wouldn't trigger anything. And so when we would review their subsequent site plan, we would require that access point is, restricted or conforming to our engineering design standards and not just all open. So
I think what I'm going to exercise some discretion as the chair, and we can have that as part of this discussion once a motion is made.
Okay.
I'd like to know, is the applicant in the audience?
Jimmy went.
Would you come up and introduce yourself, please?
Do I sit here?
It's my first time. I apologize.
You're doing fine.
Got that turned on. I just stay here.
Okay. I'm Karen Hampton. I am business manager for Easy Store. I'm also property manager for PG&I Properties. So I handle both. I'm here for Jimmy Nguyen.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant's agent? Good question. I did not drive by the site. It's been a while since I've been on the street. In the picture, the overhead picture, it shows that we have those storage pods. Are those still on site? Are they planning on being incorporated with this permit?
They are currently on site. They would be moved for the, once we start building, they'd be moved, but until then they would stay on
Do
site.
you have any concept as far as a timeline of when maybe looking at trying to migrate to apartments or what?
We've met with a few builders and it's not concrete right now. But we're looking at probably breaking ground in the spring. of next year, 2020.
Are those storage units still in the haphazard state that they're in right on this picture? Are they kind of spread out, or are they uniformly dressed like a good military?
We've moved most of them.
Okay.
The ones that were kind of haphazard, those ones are where we take people's portable storage and we just store it for them.
Mhm.
We have another property south of town, and we've moved the bulk of them. There's a couple of them sitting there today, right now.
Okay, are there any proponents, anybody that wants to speak in favor of this request other than the applicant? Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition to this request? I'll ask one more time. Anybody in opposition? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and turn this over to the board. Board, I'm looking for a motion to approve to get this on the table.
I'll make
I'll
that
make that
motion to
motion.
approve. Oh, sorry, Blake. I'll second Blake.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Motion by Blake, second by Bonnie. Board discussion.
Okay, this is where I would address the, and again, the only reason I'm concerned about it is because of the school and the traffic that's already there. You just don't have an actual place where they're coming out. And
There's no curve.
there's no I mean, yeah, I mean, you can pull out of there the whole length of that lot. And so I kind of, I hate to have you put curb and gutter in because that's backwards to build. But my concern is just what I'm saying is,
So would you be inclined to make that a recommendation if construction on apartment housing doesn't begin by, say, June 1st of next year, they need to come back and address how they're going to handle access or work with staff to address access?
yeah, that, and is that not the time also that boulevard trees would be put in? So I mean, if you all of a sudden just decided we're not gonna build at all, this is the time to clean that site up.
And then, so the question is, do you want to give them time?
Yes, I'm
this year?
fine with that, Todd, because like I said, it's backwards to do it the way I'm asking, but I also don't want to just leave it wide open the way it has been for the last 25 years or whatever. So if we can put, I'm with Todd, but you will certainly break ground as soon as possible, I would assume in the spring, if you decide to do so. So I would say, that curb and gutter needs to be addressed and boulevard trees.
And I think Rhonda too, if you look at this map now that I have it pulled up, that they could easily just, specify those driveway accesses if they would just put a boulevard there, and then that's a small curb or a small
I'm fine with
area.
waiting. I mean, it's wasted money, Brandy, to have them do that just to rip it back out. So, and they may want it to drive somewhere else. So I don't want to be, a detriment. I just want it addressed. If they decide to not build, then let's clean it up at that point.
So you're looking at boulevard trees per the ordinance to be planted and.
An actual driveway.
And working with staff to look at appropriate
Ingress.
egress.
Brandy, from where your cursor is there, I'm gonna say to the north, is that actually a designated alley? Is it a right of way? What is,
This is all just,
no, farther to the north there, between the VOTEC, right there.
this I believe is just private property of the VOTEC.
So, and does the school district own all of that property then going to the west?
Yep.
As far as even where that looks like there's a metal roof? I mean, is there access?
Yep. So that is all different ownership, and you can see that Watertown School District owns that property too.
Correct. So there won't be
And there,
any entrance there off that. I mean, because that's privately owned, there will be no access to that property. It's all gotta come off 11th, kind of where we were just.
yep. And that's something too, though, that I kind of see, I think I see where you're going with it, where during our review of depending on density and to make sure that there's adequate fire access and then, building codes that are, all of that would be addressed and say that, but the fact that we're addressing storage units at this point and they exist there today. I say that it became an issue if they wanted to do an apartment complex and then they needed secondary access. They would have to secure that before we would issue the building permit to meet code.
Right. So ingress, egress, boulevard trees. Before I ask for an amendment to the motion, is there anything else?
Sidewalk would be included in that, I assume.
Sidewalks would be,
So, yeah, so the things that would be typically required.
okay. Blake, you made the original motion and it was seconded by Bonnie. Would you entertain a substitute motion or amend your motion to include the requirements that boulevard trees, ingress, egress, sidewalks be addressed in the event no R3 development, apartment, residential development does not occur by June 1st, that they would need to come back to the staff, something along those lines? Is that, you following my gist?
Yep.
Blake, would
Yeah,
you
I'm
support
fine with
that?
making that alternate motion with the infrastructure improvements and based on the time frame that you stated.
Bonnie,
And I will change my second.
we have a motion and a second on previously amended motion.
Mr. Chairman, in your summary, you mentioned June 1st. Just for clarity on the record, you're talking June 1st of 2024,
Thank you.
correct?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't know what, forgot what it was. Yeah. Thank you, thank you. So the motion before us is to approve the board consideration for the storage units of 107 11th Street Northeast, subject to the applicant guaranteeing that they will come and talk with staff to address boulevard trees, ingress, egress, and sidewalk and any other requirements that would be necessary in the event apartment housing is not constructed. Roll call, please.
Hanson,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Kays,
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes,
Item 5B, board consideration of a conditional use request for a home daycare at 113 17th Street Southeast in the R2A single family attached residential district. Brandy, could you give us some background?
Yes, thank you, Todd. So this is our typical daycare request for, conditional use request for a daycare at the property located at 113 17th Street Southeast. And pretty standard of, like we have on our agenda packet here of the items that we are to look at when we are contemplating if a daycare conditional use is appropriate. And we have, the application also does state and address some of those items. And the property is zoned R2A, single family attached residential. And with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Does the board have any questions at this time for staff?
Just curious if the yard is fenced, Brandy.
That I'm not sure.
No, the yard is not currently fenced.
Did you have any calls in or letters from neighboring people?
We had one phone call and that person was notified of the date and time of the meeting, which was in her letter, and she stated she would be in attendance today.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? Or is the applicant here? Ma'am, would you come up to the microphone, please?
I'm not the applicant. I will come.
Is the applicant, are you representing the applicant?
No, I'm not.
The applicant said she was not able to make it today. She was going to call in on Teams.
I am here.
Oh, the applicant is here. Thank you. Ma'am, would you just want to give us a brief overview of what your intent is to do here on your property?
Absolutely. It's an in-home daycare. Hours are 7:30 to 5:15, and then I do have calls in to get some quotes on getting the backyard fenced in.
Are you looking at becoming a state registered or state licensed daycare provider? Or your numbers would be less than that requirement?
I am not looking to be state certified.
So you'll have less than 12 children.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board for the applicant?
This is Ford. I have a quick question. So are you committed to putting a fence in, or are you just gathering quotes?
No, I'm committed, but I want to get quotes to see what would be the best, you know, whether it's wood, vinyl, all that stuff. And what would be more beneficial for the kids.
So you're committed to putting a fence in. It's just the type of fence you're going to put in that's under question.
Correct, correct.
Thank you.
And you're not thinking chain link, right? You are thinking a solid.
Correct. I do not want to do chain link, no.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you. Please stand by. We may need to bring you back. I'm now looking for anybody that's a proponent, somebody that's in favor, any testimony in favor of the request. Any proponent testimony? All right, I'm going to move on to opponent or impartial testimony. Ma'am, would you come up to the microphone, please?
I'm Marlene Nogelmeyer, and I live behind the property of the daycare.
Would you point that property?
That 114 16th Street, right there. There.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
okay.
Your comments, ma'am?
The only comment that I have, I see a lot of toys and things around, and I'm only asking for a privacy fence so that I don't have to look at that. I've lived there 42 years, and I'm pretty used to having my park-like scene. And it does bother me to see everything, and it does bother some of the neighbors. I'm okay with the daycare. I just want a privacy fence.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of this witness? Thank you very much. So I'm going to close the public hearing and open this item up for a motion to approve. Can I get a motion to approve to get on the table?
So moved.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Motion and a second. Discussion on the motion.
Well, I guess it's, you know, if she's asking for a fence and we've got an applicant that says she's willing to do the fence. I guess the only thing I would say is that to ensure that everybody's happy that we require a solid fence, whether it's wood or vinyl or whatever, concrete, whatever she wants to put up.
What about a time frame?
I was
Yes.
just gonna, the applicant that's online, when is it your intent to start the operation of the daycare? June 1st, July 1st?
It will be, it started in May. As far as the fence, the couple quotes I have, they are booked out until almost the end of August. So it will either be fall or I will be on the books to start it by the beginning of next summer. It all depends on the fencing guys, and I still have 2 more quotes to get.
I agree. I think you're gonna have a hard time finding somebody putting up a fence right now. I would think that, again, I think, you know, that's what we have to measure here, whether or not, when that fence would have to be constructed by.
And I'm also curious, how tall is the fence that's being considered?
It'll be 6 foot. It'll be a privacy fence.
So, maker of the motion wants to put the condition of a 6-foot solid fence on the property line. And when is the timing of that fence to be constructed?
You know, around in her patients.
Well, theoretically, they have to come and get a building permit. And once they get a building permit, what's the life of the building permit?
1 year.
So theoretically, I would say that the building permit needs to be applied by within now, and then she's got a year to get the building to get it put in.
But, and I think that you guys should look at it as the use is already happening and the conditional use was not applied for. And if it's impacting the surrounding neighborhood, that it should be maybe expedited.
Sure.
I agree with Brandy. I guess that's right. When you said a year, I'm like, I think, that's why I was counting my months.
So,
I honestly think, you know, in 6 months' time, which would get, you know, before frost, before freeze up. So I would say by, oh, we're June, July, August, September, October, November. Well, we can't do it then anyway. I would say by,
November,
well, you can't do that late, I don't think.
July, August, September, October. No, end of October would be.
Yeah,
fine.
so I would say October 31st. It should be constructed to ensure to,
Because and that's the thing, is that you can put that time frame on the conditional use where the building permit is a year.
Right.
So,
So ma'am, do you understand what we're talking about here? That if this is approved, that there will be a condition potentially requiring you to have that fence constructed by November 1st?
Yes,
Regardless-
yes.
okay,
And like I said,
okay.
it all depends on who I can get. I have to go based on their schedule too. And as far as the toys, it's not really an eyesight. I have a patio deck box and I pick it up every night. So I will get it done as soon as I can.
Well, the issue is if you don't have the fence constructed by November 1st, then you're going to be coming back before this board and we would have to shut you down until you're able to get that fence constructed. So I just wanted you understand what the impact of the condition would be.
Absolutely.
So given that, we had a motion, maker of the motion, amend that.
amend it to.
Second, agrees with that?
Yes.
So the motion on the table is to approve, subject to a fence being constructed by November 1st. All those, I'm sorry, call the roll, please.
all right, Dolly,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes.
Alexi,
Yes.
Jarvis Johnson,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Item BC, 5C, excuse me, is the board consideration of a variance request to the zoning ordinance requirements from the 20-foot setback requirements for an accessory structure greater than 200 square feet when the garage door is entering perpendicular to an alley in the R2A single-family attached residential district for a proposed accessory structure on the property located at 102 8th Street Northwest. Boy, that's like meeting in church. That's
Brandy, is this when I recuse myself?
Yep.
Okay.
being that you're recusing yourself, I'm going to ask you to step away from the table.
No problem.
All right, are you ready for me to explain further?
Please give us some background.
All right, thanks, Todd. So this property is located at 102 8th Street Northwest. And a building permit was applied for a attached garage to be added on to the existing house here that you can see on the site plan. And the garage doors would enter perpendicular to the alley. But they're requesting that it be approximately, well, and they're showing the variance that they're asking for is that the setback be 11.4 feet, where generally 20 feet is, well, not generally, 20 feet is required by ordinance when a garage door is entering perpendicular to an alley. Typically, the front yard setbacks are 25 feet in an R2A district or really any residential district. But when it's on an alley, we do reduce that by 5 feet. So the 20 feet is sufficient for parking without obstructing any driving, patterns, I guess, on the alley. And then that's also, with sidewalks, although there's not sidewalks on alleys. So that's why we can reduce that further to the 20 feet. And if you look here on GIS, this is the property here where there are two parcels involved. So that new addition would go here where their driveway currently is, and they do, that they're utilizing for parking. So you can also see that the existing house does not meet the setback. It is, let's see on here, let me go back. It's less than, I think it's about 6 feet, but yes, okay, and the applicant. Okay, so and the applicant can speak more to that as well, but so about 6 feet off of the alley there. And then the other existing detached garage also, is, that should actually be on here too. It's about 11 feet off of the alley, so that's a legal non-conforming garage. And I don't believe we looked to see when that one was permitted, with Jana. But she might be able to look that up too, because that might be helpful information that I just thought of. But regardless, and then two, as far as, because we looked at different options for this property, and that's where we really landed that that asking for the variance, is what was most ideal for what he is hoping to accomplish. So yeah, with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
Sorry, is there any questions from the board for Brandy or points of clarification?
Brandy, so you've got, looks like two, I'm gonna assume 50-foot lots highlighted there. And the applicant owns both of those lots.
Yep.
So is there not enough adjacent land in that other 50-foot lot to build without needing a variance?
Well, and that's where maybe you guys want to have the applicant come in and answer those questions.
One other quick question before I do that. Brandy, are we aware of very many instances in the city of Watertown where somebody has 3 accesses to public right-of-ways, 2 of which are alleys and 1 is a street? Is this kind of an oddball lot in town?
Yes. Yeah, there, you don't have a T alley too often.
Okay. At this time, I would like to call the applicant up to give us a little background on his request and then answer some questions, please.
Mr. Chairman, if I could briefly.
Thank you.
To Commissioner Hanson's point, I was also gonna pose the idea or ask the question about performing a development lot agreement. I don't know, Brandy, if that's been considered or part of this application, but we would want to ensure that that was carried out, no matter what the action with the structure would be.
Staff would recommend
Yeah,
it as a.
We've already entered one.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Could you describe what that means, Heath, just for anybody, just for the record?
Yeah, so it is a development lot agreement. We call it a DLA. It really ties 2 properties together that are under the same ownership so that you're erasing a lot line, because typically you have your setbacks come from lot lines and you sometimes have your easements. Easements would also have, like, that's when a DLA doesn't work if there are side yard easements, but it's because your setback should be based from the property lines. And so it, in theory, erases it, but it is a recorded official document that's recorded at the Register of Deeds.
And that also generally requires the tying of the 2 properties for subsequent sale as
Yes.
well.
Yep, so then they are now, like, they're legally tied together.
Brandy, if I may, I don't know if you can zoom in tighter on that. So, and I'm gonna bring up this question in the next item, but how many auxiliary structures is typically permitted in the town to?
So you can have 1 detached structure above one detached accessory structure above 200 square feet and 1 below. So you can have a garden shed and a detached garage in theory. We like to call them just accessory structures across the board because we don't care what you're using that structure for necessarily. And so then this will be an attached garage. So you can have an attached garage and 2 detached accessory structures.
May I say something, Brandy? I just had someone text me who's trying to watch us on TV and say they can't get it.
We do have a piece of equipment down, so this is not live, but
Okay.
we will, they can look up the Teams meeting where they can call in if they want to listen in. Otherwise, we will post this after the meetings are concluded. The piece of equipment comes in tomorrow, so we're just working with it.
So what is the white thing then?
Well, I'm just gonna slow down just a second.
Okay.
And then I would like to have, acknowledge the chair to acknowledge questions of the applicant. You have a question, Rhonda?
She answered.
Any other ones you want?
Rhonda, do you have a question for the applicant?
No.
Donna? Sorry. Deanna? Diana, I'm just lost. I'm losing my
Just call me
mind.
Ford.
Yeah, I'm losing my mind today.
Easier. Oh, Todd, we've been looking for that for quite some time, so no biggie.
My apologies. Any questions of the applicant?
Yes, thank you. I'm looking here at your application, describe the hardship that will result if variance is denied, and your response is double alley.
That's what Carla put on there. I didn't know what that was.
Oh, I don't know what that means either,
Yeah.
so maybe someone could
I mean,
explain that.
Well, and I think that the you should describe your hardship though. So Carla did help him fill out the application, and a double alley is what makes it unique. And so if you, because I know when we discussed, you described how you felt aggrieved by the decision, so you can describe that to the board.
so I'm Travis Rocky, by the way. Somebody asked what that white deal is. That's my camper. So, anyhow, what I was trying to do when I was planning on building this garage is to keep it in line on the north side with my house so that everything's in line. As you can see, there's a patio and a fire pit, and the green grass is the only green grass that I'm gonna have for my 5 grandkids. So that's why I didn't want to back it up onto the other lot. As far as off the alley, it's the same as what I've been driving into for 45 years now. The garage that's already been there for that long, it's basically the same distance as what it was before. By doing the size that I'm doing with the 30 by 36, that leaves where it looks like my ice shack was on the pavement when this was taken. I don't have that anymore. But that's gonna leave 13 feet between my 2 garages to be able to park 2 vehicles in there yet. Okay, so I will still have some off-street parking plus the garage. So there's no plans on parking in front of the garage. I don't park in front of the old garage, because if I do, then I'm out in the alley anyways. So I've never did that, and that's why with taking half my driveway away, I wanted to leave that 13 foot in between so that I still had places to park.
So, Brandy and sir, you did receive variances in the past for the home construction and the other garage.
No, the other garage has been there for 100 years.
Okay, but the home itself,
Yeah, the addition on the south side there, I had to get a variance because that was back when 50-foot lots, you still needed a variance to go to 6 foot. Now that's common. Now you don't have to have a variance for 6 foot off
do
anymore.
we know when was that variance granted?
On June 1st, 2006.
2006. Any other questions of the applicant, Blake?
Yes, I have another, a question about the placement of the garage. So the only reason that I hear you saying you don't want to push it farther back into the second lot is for the convenience of.
Hold on, let me back up. So in the plans of this garage is a future loft that will connect right into my kitchen where it's sitting right now. If I get the variance and with the north walls all being lined up, there's future plan, it's on, yeah, pull up the plans, please. It's not in the plans right now, but it's for future to be able to have a loft in the garage that will have a doorway right into my kitchen in my house.
And I think, and that was one thing too, that, because we talked through those options. And if it does get pushed, and I think there's something with the grade as well. But then I think that Howie's wanting it to line up with the loft, then there's not enough room for the stairs and doorway, existing doorway. And once I get these plans up here, that he can walk you through that. Now, as long as I remember it. We don't want any more of a holes up here. Sorry, that's not you.
It's my uncle.
Well, let's just go with your address.
102.
He came to the board. Okay, 102 8th.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
While Brandy's looking that up, so I brought up on my phone a different GPS just so I can zoom it in a little bit closer than the yellowed out version that we have. Again, I mean, it's hard to tell. Travis, is that the only, looks like there's a garden shed, I'm gonna say on the northeast corner of the property.
Yep.
Is that the only other auxiliary structure or is, I can't
It's all-
tell if that's a trailer or, I mean,
That's my camper, the white.
no, again, I'm on a different GPS version.
I think it's the northwest corner.
The northeast corner is my shed.
Your garden or
Yeah,
utility shed.
yeah.
And that is that, again, I can't tell if there's another, maybe it was your fish shack is at the view I'm looking at.
Tractor camper or something, yeah.
Gotcha.
But that, most of that lot is all fenced in now too. Since that picture, since this, you probably have the fence on your
Correct.
new one.
There's your,
So, yeah, so there's where coming in over here,
you go to, you took that and then.
coming over here would be coming right into my kitchen. That's being, see, this part here is also part of this plan to make my kitchen bigger. And then that would be coming in. So then the steps come in from the door, come into my back porch and then go up more steps to the loft, future loft area. And then that has access into my house from the loft as well. That's why I was trying to keep everything in line back here.
Other questions for the applicant from the board? Stand by. Is there any proponents in the audience wishing to testify on this item? Any proponents? Anybody opposing the request? Anybody opposing the request? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and before we go enter into discussion, I just want to clarify for the applicant that there are 4 members here and 1 online. There's 5 of us. You will need all 5 of us to vote in the affirmative to grant the variance. You have the option to withdraw your request at this time and come back when there is a full board of 7 members to have this heard if you think that you haven't convinced all of us at this time. So I'm giving you that opportunity to decide what you want to do. If you are denied the request today, Brandy, is it 6 months?
I told the applicants that they would have the opportunity to withdraw before discussion when we got to their agenda item.
You said discussion. I thought you meant discussion on the motion or discussion, so.
No, before discussion.
Well, we have no bylaws, so I'm going to use that as the chairman's prerogative to give him the option.
Okay. What would you like to do
I'm
again?
already 2 months behind. I mean, we were planning on doing this the beginning of May. And we're already to June now.
That's the thing. It's like, it's always, you never know what each week will bring either.
Right.
So we don't usually. Yeah, we don't want to put people in that position.
All right, I'm going to then ask for a motion to approve the variance request. Will somebody make that motion so we can get on the table?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Is there a second?
4 seconds.
I have a motion and a second. We are now at board discussion on the motion to approve. I will let anybody else go first. I do have some comments, but I'll reserve them till the end.
Well, I guess the straight face rule is hard here when we have a whole 2 lots to use. So I'm struggling with that. And then, to be that close to the alley. So. And I get the whole rest of the building, but that's
Anybody
my
else
issue.
have a comment?
This is Ford. I have a similar comment. We're crowding a lot into one lot when we have plenty of open space. And I'm trying to look at the definition of unnecessary hardship as versus a matter of convenience. It's not.
No, I'm sorry, sir. This is our board discussion.
It's unnecessary hardship is demonstrated when the land in question cannot yield a reasonable return without variance for its unique circumstances. I'm uncertain.
To get to the 20.
Jason, any comments?
Yes, again, I struggle a little bit that there's, to me, buildable area there. On the flip side of that, Travis says he's lived there for whatever, 45 years, grew up on that property, I believe. I guess if there, and we don't really have the resources to check, complaints of parking or nuisance issues. I don't know if there's anything on record. It's kind of one of those deals of no harm, no foul type of thing, but do we have any? I don't know if staff is aware of any complaints from neighbors of blocking alley or.
Yeah, the snow removal, of course, is always the big summertime, probably not so much. What is to the south of him when on that alley? What is there?
So that, he was saying is,
Yeah, that
this area is additional parking.
for who?
His neighbor owns it.
Terry Special.
That property zones C commercial,
Yeah, that's Terry Peschel's.
C3.
C3.
Um,
I'm gonna go to Blake. Blake, do you have anything that you would like to offer?
Yeah, I struggle with these kind of lots a lot. This is in, the older part of town, so these are typically R2A lots. They're not designed to the standards of our modern ordinance in terms of width and minimum size requirements. And in particular, where we have, double frontages on corner lots, or an even more unique situation like this where we have, frontages on all three sides. It does, when you apply those minimum setbacks, it leaves very little of that principal lot buildable. And so you will find that we have made many exceptions to these setback requirements throughout R2A lots all around town because of that. Because these are older, smaller lots that are not typical of our current sizing where the setbacks were determined. So.
Thank you. I'm going to.
Yes, I understand that we do have two lots here together, but it's still subject to some of those same unique factors.
Thank you. My comments in this regard was, I think the city is already extended some sort of idea that it's okay to build within 6 feet of the alley line based on a previous decision on a structure that has been in place for more than 6 years or 7 years. I'm not, again, aware of any comments. This addition would be further back than the variance that was granted on that. And I'm going to say that that board would probably had every reason and right to do so at that time. I liken this to something I don't really call it non-conforming. I call it a non-standard addition to the structure. While the structure itself is non-conforming by ordinance, the addition would only be non-standard in a sense. So I'm going to support a motion and a vote to approve this based on that. And I do think the other thing is this is a unique lot, let alone being R2A, but it has 3 frontages. It's a corner lot where you actually have a corner lot on an alley. It's something that you just don't normally see. So I think the uniqueness of the lot and that past actions of the city Board of Adjustment is basis or reasoning enough to approve. And being that we have a motion to approve and a second, I am going to ask to call roll.
Can I say something, Ted? Can I ask a question? Because Rhonda's all about the snow. So now we have another driveway there. And you can't push the snow out into the alley. Where are we gonna push the snow all the way around to the east side of the other garage?
Yep, that's where I have been.
And you have enough room there to store now, you're gonna have 3 driveways.
I'm gonna have less driveway to store snow by building a building on top of it than what I have right now.
We'll have less area where the snow will fall.
Right now, I have that whole big driveway that I can park 6 cars on it, and now I'm gonna have 3 cars parked on it. Or 2 cars parked on it. For snow to move, I mean.
Back to our board, okay, so how do we straight face when the next person comes that doesn't, I mean, we've got enough land there, and that is the hardship that we're supposed to determine. So I get the R2 thing, but our,
The R2A.
yeah. But we have ample land to the other direction. And so that's where I struggle. How are we gonna straight face turn down somebody else then? Or are we just gonna rubber stamp everything because it's just easier?
Again, I think there's plenty of justification. The hardship is the lot itself, the way it's laid out. That's the hardship. And I think that we as the board and we as a city have already said that it's okay to be 6 feet off that property line already. And so in that opinion, and I still go back to what Blake had said, in these older parts of town, we have people that want to make an investment, enhance the tax base. Hasn't been a problem for the neighborhood in his 45 years, or in the last 6 years or 7 years since we granted that variance. I'm not exactly certain what the problem would be to straight face it or not straight face it. And being that, I'm gonna call for a roll.
Okay. Hanson,
Thanks. I approve it.
okay, Ford,
No.
Dolly,
Yes.
Hayes,
Yes,
Dargis Johnson,
sorry, the vote is 4-1, the motion fails.
3-2.
4-1, I thought you said no. You said yeah, I'm sorry, you said yes? I'm sorry, 3-2, motion still fails. We are now on to the next agenda item, which is item 5G. Board consideration of a variance request to the zoning ordinance requirements from the allowable number of accessory buildings in the R1 single family district for the purpose of building an accessory structure greater than 200 square feet for the property located at 1341 South Lake Drive. Brandy, could you give us some background on that?
Yes. Thank you, Todd. Let me get that one pulled up here. Okay, so this is a variance request for, so there's already a accessory structure greater than 200 square feet. And they are asking to construct another one. So the proposed structure requires variance to the allowable numbers of accessory buildings where lots less than or equal to 43,560 square feet in total area are allowed. 1 unattached garage, 1 attached garage, and 1 storage structure per dwelling unit. And so the fact that there will be 2 detached garages or detached accessory structures greater than 200 square feet is the reason why they're asking for a variance today. And okay, let me just pull this one up here. Sorry. Give you guys a better idea. I'll go to the vicinity map. Okay, so you can see here, this is where they would like to put a 12 by 24 foot detached structure. You can see here is a detached garage. and then the attached garage, and then there is no storage. There is no accessory structure under 200 square feet. So they would be, and they'd be requesting to be 6 foot off the property line, which that's what I'm trying to confirm here because our agenda packet says R2A, but I don't think this one's on that. It's R1. So this setback would need to be 9 feet. If approved, all that we're looking at,
Is the CUP?
Yeah.
And the variance,
The
the variance of the use.
yep, no, not the use, just the variance to have 2 unattached garages in the R1 district is what we're looking at, because they have,
We'll talk about that. I'm going to talk about my theory on that when we get down the road. But
okay. And with that, I'll stand by for questions.
any questions of Brandy at this point?
Question on
Randy, if I
that,
may, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
The 6 feet, that is correct or incorrect?
Incorrect.
All right.
It should be 9 feet when it is greater than 200 square feet.
And the applicant understands that they will be the minimum.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions for Brandy at this time?
Yeah, Brandy, that existing detached structure, it looks like it's about 15 feet from the principal structure. If that was within 10 feet, it would be considered part of the primary structure. Is that correct? Be considered
Correct.
attached?
Yep, as far as setbacks are concerned, yes. But when it's over 200 square feet, it has that same side yard setback anyway, the 9 feet.
Other quick question, Brandy. If they were coming in for just a 200 square foot building, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
No.
Any other questions before I open up the public hearing?
Todd, what did you just say?
If that was just a 200 square foot building, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Because that would be allowed, 200 feet or smaller. Yeah, I'm allowed to have that, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Any,
Mr. Chairman, sorry. Is there any height limitation or and I can ask the applicant, but in a auxiliary structure, refresh my memory, what's our wall height limitation, if anything?
20 foot maximum height. And then 12-foot sidewalls. But then too, just to give you guys a little more context as well, we do break down how much with different lot areas. So there's different thresholds, will you, for lot sizes. So this lot is about 30,000 square feet. And so they are kind of in between this area here of, they're not greater, if they are greater than an acre, which is the 43,560, then they would be able to have 2 detached structures. But they're below the acre, so that's why then they can't have 2 detached structure, although they are larger than a typical R1 lot, which is usually around that 12,000. So they're about double that lot. So just for context there.
And what's the size of the proposed structure?
I believe 24, and this is where you guys might want to open the public hearing and the applicant could.
yeah, that's what are we ready? I'd like to open up the public hearing on this matter and have the applicant come to the podium. Introduce yourself, sir.
Hello, everyone. Bill Ferguson, is my name, 1341 South Lake Drive. 2/3 of an acre. If I would have known that this structure, which I've already purchased, was over 200 square feet, I would have known, but this structure is 88 square feet, too big over the 200 square feet. I'm 9 feet off the property line, 30 feet from the other line. I'm just waiting for the variance for 88 extra square feet. 8-foot tall building, 24 by 12.
Are there any questions of the applicant from the board?
That matters, but are you putting a driveway to it?
No, ma'am.
So it will be functioning as a garden shed,
Additional storage.
I guess my frustration is that the structure's already in place.
No,
Oh, you've purchased it, but it's not in
Yeah.
place.
a month ago, I would like to put it out. I'm just waiting to get a 88 square foot variance.
Any other questions of the applicant?
I do. What kind of siding is on it then?
It's a Dakota storage building, all, T20, T18 or whatever it is. Lap board, painted, sided, shingle, doors, windows, overhead garage door. It is not going to be on cement, which I would have to, it is a move-in structure, sit on a packed gravel base. So someday when I move, it's coming with me. But I'd set back at just under 10 feet. Or is it 10 feet? Yeah, 10 feet, and I'm 30 feet from the back lot, so.
Anybody else before we open up the public hearing? Thank you, sir. Please stand by. I'm going to now open up the public hearing. Are there any other individuals that would like to speak in favor of this request? Anyone to speak in favor? I'm not seeing anybody to speak against. Anyone to speak against? I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion from the board to approve this request. Oh, and by the way, Bonnie is back on.
I see her,
Bonnie?
Yes.
I see her.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, motion to approve, please.
I'll make that motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jason. All right, now we are at the point of board discussion on this matter. Does anybody have a question or comment to talk about the motion?
Do you have an aerial shot of just the surrounding neighbors,
Yes.
please?
And hold on, I'm just trying to finish up this thought here. Okay. I want to share something else with you guys too. So it's gonna be back in this corner. And it'll meet the side yard setback. Another thought is, okay, so in these breakdowns here, so they could have a 1,600 square foot building because of their lot size. So and because it is 5% is less. So this provision here says whichever is greater. So, and the existing garage, that detached garage that they have is 1,508. So that garage could have been 100 square feet larger still. And then they would have had their one under 200 square feet. So, just a thought there with how close they are in that over the square footage.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
I had a similar thought, and that was a great way of articulating it, Brandy. Wasn't quite sure and was gonna ask that question on the breakout of these lots and the restrictions on the accessory structures or the detached structures based on the land area of the lot. And what you just described was a question I had in the back of my mind, if there was carryover, if you will, square footage from one of the structures that already exists that could be considered in this application.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go down a path here. I empathize and sympathize with the applicant regarding the structure. I think the question though really is, do we have the authority to grant a variance to me, which is really a use variance? If we look at the ordinance itself, the definition of a variance says it's a modification or relief from the provisions of the ordinance. And such modification, except that modification in the allowable uses within a district shall not be permitted. And that variances, under standards for variances, it says variances shall not be granted to allow a use otherwise excluded from a particular district. And when we define the size of a structure to determine what that is the use that's identified. And by saying, well, in this instance, 288 versus 200, when we say 200 is what the definition of that accessory use is, I think we are de facto going approach of we are changing the ordinance on the fly. And because of that, I don't even think, I think it's a moot issue to even to talk about whether or not you're changing. I don't think you can variance the requirement of the ordinance when it's specific to the definition of the structure itself. That's my point. And something that
Todd, if I could rebuttal.
you may, I'm going to put you on a short leash though.
Okay. I guess then I'll just say I disagree. So
I think there's case law that supports me. That's where I'm going with it, but I didn't want to go down that avenue.
that's fine. Good. Staff felt that it was appropriate to bring this forward as a variance request.
Questions or comments before we go to a vote?
Again, and sorry if I didn't pick it up the first time, but so with that initial detached garage, and I know if he's got already a pre-built building, but how much larger could he make that initial detached garage and still be?
About 100 square feet.
And that's all the more he could add on to that existing structure.
Yep.
And then, I don't know the elevation, but of the attached garage, would there be any restriction on what he could add on to that if he needs more storage space?
So an attached garage, you can do a 42 by 56 max, and he would have a lot of room for expansion there.
And again, I don't know that the elevation makes that real
So he's at
appetite, but
30 by 24. So a lot of room for expansion on that attached garage.
correct.
I think if this does move forward and it does get passed, I think the simple fix to this solution, so we don't have to see these things in the future, would say that on our 20 to 40, 30 to 40,000, wherever that breakout is, you make the structures a function of the size of the lot, and then we wouldn't be having this conversation, nor would I have the moral dilemma that I have where I'm thinking that we're granting a use variance.
That's where my thoughts were going, Mr. Chairman, as well, when I was mentioning those questions to Brandy after she pointed those areas out. That line of thinking where that ordinance could be amended and really have, for all intents and purposes, the same effect of what they're really in place for.
And that too, we do have an ordinance in the works, and this can be a catalyst for getting that brought forward, but this section of ordinance really does need cleaning up, and we're aware of it, and it's very close, but it's just been very busy to get it finalized. So that is something that we have considered of just looking at it. We don't care what the structure is. You can have this many square feet of detached structures. But then that gets into this, and when we bring that ordinance amendment forward, that's where we're going to have to discuss density and how many structures is too many, what creates clutter. So but that'll be some fun discussion for the future.
Any other questions or comments on the motion to approve?
Yeah, just one additional follow-up to my earlier question around structures that are within 10 feet of the principal structure. In terms of setback requirements, does that also apply to the number of structures? So if this were within 10 feet of the principal structure, would it count as the principal structure?
No. Nope, it would.
That's
it would
purely
still-
for setbacks?
Yes. Yep, because it's just for, so yeah, no, if you had a garden shed that was 5 feet from the primary structure, it would just have to be for setbacks, but you still would potentially have code requirements for fire separation for your separate buildings per review. So
It's written oddly in the ordinance book. So, if we do start looking at stuff here, I think we need to clean up the language around that as well.
Yes, and that we are definitely aware of.
Any last comments or questions? Seeing none, I will ask Brandy to call the roll.
Right, Alexi.
Yes.
Douglas Johnson.
pass. Yes.
Hanson,
Yes.
Ford,
No.
Dolly,
Yes.
Kate.
I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to vote no based on principle. The motion fails.
May I ask something?
I'm sorry, so we're gonna be moving on to the next agenda item. We are at the time of open public comment. Did anybody sign up for the open public comments? Was that it?
Page.
Sorry about that, everybody. Item 5E, board consideration of a variance requesting to the zoning ordinance requirements from application and scope of regulations of an accessory building in the R2A single-family attached residential district for proposed repair, altering the height of a non-conforming accessory structure located at 509 8th Street Northwest. Randy, can you give us some background, please?
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so this, let me get this pulled up here. So this is for a variance request at 509 8th Street Northwest. And what is happening here is there will be a conforming addition going on to this structure. Okay, so there will be a conforming addition that will meet the setbacks, but then while they are doing that construction, they are wanting to fix this roof line. And then which will, this is an existing attached garage that is legal non-conforming, so it's only about approximately 4 foot off that property line. And so I'll get these dimensions here. Okay, so the roof of the existing garage will be raised to a height not to exceed 10-foot sidewalls. Typically, an attached garage, there is no limit on the sidewall height, but because it's non-conforming to the side yard setback, which is 6 feet, so there are 2 feet within that setback, then that is why they're having come forth to the board. But then we're just getting the specifics of what they are proposing. So, and then the maximum 18-foot peak height. And then currently too, this illustration here shows that the sidewall is approximately 6.4 feet of that existing structure. So the overall height will be changing. The footprint of the attached garage will not be changing. The height will be. And it still will be, the sidewall height will be 10 feet. So with that, I'll stand by for questions.
Thank you, Brandy. Are there any questions of Brandy from the board?
I do, Brandy. Now I see the garage doors are going to come from the back of the property into the new garage. Are they going to put in the driveway off of the alley and then circle in?
That might be a good question for the applicant.
Any other questions for Brandy? Seeing none, we'll bring the applicant up. Sir, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your project?
Right, I'm Jason Madison. Yes, the garage doors would be facing the west and we didn't have to use the alley. Because the garage that's there right now, you know, there's a driveway there, but aesthetically pleasing, it just, the roof line, it needs to come down. So I'm trying to match it up with the roof line of the house. So I wouldn't go any higher than, it really would just be a match to the walls and the roof line, so.
Of the existing
of
house.
the
of this other
existing
board.
house, yeah. I've drawn up some plans, future plans for it, and there'd be a gable on the other side and it, right there. We've been putting some work into the last couple of years and just went and tried to make it look nice around the curb.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just looking at the picture. I was looking at the picture. Any other questions for the applicant? I'm sorry.
Yes, I do. Okay, is your existing garage already 18 feet wide?
Existing? No.
Or no, I'm sorry, 14 foot. My mistake.
It might be, the garage door itself is probably 7. We can't even put a garage, car in it.
So
That's
your
why we do it.
existing garage is gonna be wider than what it is right now?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No, this is just to raise the walls and put a set of rafters on there. It's pretty flat roof right now and it just doesn't really go with the house at all.
So Bonnie, their addition is the one that now those garage doors will face
Yeah.
to the north, so they won't be on the street. And then that is conforming, so that's
Yeah.
not what they're here for, it's just because they're gonna have to raise the height of that existing garage.
Okay, just wondering, because you know, when I drove by and looked at it, it's so short, you just can't eyeball that. How wide is it? So just wonder if you're gonna go wider, but you're gonna have your driveway, because if you keep going on the alley, keep going west, there's that red house where the garage just kind of goes like that. And yours is going to be a circle type into your,
Yep.
okay. That'll be nice.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Board has a question. Have you considered just tearing this existing garage down and just going with the new garage that you want to add on?
I would like to, but if I tear it down, then we gotta come back to 7 feet. And that would be halfway right through our driveway. And then you'd almost be parking right into a 6 feet. Just the way the face of the building that, we'd be able to park right there in front of the garage door. And I like the way it sits right now.
It's overwhelming on the alley in the short wall. As it is, it's hard to imagine how much more substantial it will be with a taller wall.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I'm looking at what Diana's saying. What if you, did take the garage down, the existing garage? And so your wall would come and make that square where it's making the square now? And then you could shoot your doors right out to the alley instead of having the funky drive or wouldn't, and then you could still get free. Well, where her cursor is right now, you would just come and make that corner. And then your driveway would be, you'd have 3 stalls going out to the alley. Is that making sense?
Then he'd have to be set back 20 feet.
Oh, he's not set back far enough. Okay. Yeah, all right, right.
Neighborhoods again.
Yeah, 4 and you got 14, you're at 18.
Any other questions of the applicant? Seeing none, I will open up the public hearing and ask for any proponent testimony. Any proponent testimony? Seeing none, any opponent testimony? Any opponent testimony? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and call for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Discussion on the motion.
Board has struggled with these items because of the definition of unnecessary hardship. And then asking the applicant to describe what the hardship that will be incurred if the variance is denied. And I I will say that in order for people to know from me what to expect, I go with the definition. As Brandy knows, I love definitions. And the definition of an unnecessary hardship is not merely convenience. And then the explanation, unable to do substantial repair to existing garage because it is too close to the property line. Well, we're talking about doing substantial repair by raising the wall and putting on a different roof. So the description of the hardship we've just negated here in our conversation. It is definitely too close to the property line. And if you drive by there, the short wall on that alley, as I said, is already overwhelming to make it a taller wall. So I struggle. I hurt for people, but I go by what's written in black and white.
Thank you. Other comments on the motion?
Brandy, could you just bring up the aerial view again, please?
Yes. But what I see here is that it's already existing. He's going to make a big improvement in his property. And you drive up and down these alleys throughout these older neighborhoods like this, and you're gonna see more and more garages and houses and other improvements right by the alley. It's not like he's building something to the alley, he's just making something better that was already by the alley.
Blake, any comments?
Nope.
Right, thank you. Any other comments before we call for a roll call? Please call the roll.
All right, Dolly,
Yes.
Valetsky,
Yes.
Ford,
No,
Hayes,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
5 votes in favor, 1 against. The motion to approve the variance is granted. Now, on to the next item, the agenda, open public comment. Is there anyone here to address the Board of Adjustment on something that hasn't already been discussed? Anybody sign up, Randy?
No.
Then we will move on to new business. Is there any new business before the board?
None that I have.
Any old business? I'm
Ford
sorry,
has old business.
old business.
I appreciate your comment earlier, Todd, that we don't have bylaws. And at the discretion of the chairperson, we did this, that, the other thing. And I think that points out that we need bylaws. And we need them ASAP.
Yeah.
I think
I
that's a
agree.
serious deficiency in our board operation.
I do know somebody that has written a lot of board bylaws for other communities that works for the county, who's really good at giving talks on bylaws and board management. And so I would offer his assistance.
Well, that's great. We'll be interested to hear more about it.
So can we set a date on that?
Well, I can talk to him tomorrow.
Nice. And then we could figure out, have a little training session or something, so we know what we're dealing with and that would be great. Thank you for that offer, Todd. That's very generous of you.
And yeah, and
Any-
thank you for bringing that up, Diana.
Yeah, any other old business?
Well, you know, I love my definitions, Brandy.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a motion?
Second.
We are adjourned.
All right, now, there is no
Oh,
TV.
we have a planning commission meeting. Now, this is just the board. I'm sorry.
Planning commission
That
today.
was the board, that was the board of adjustment. Now we're gonna be going to the. planning.
There's no TV timeout, so we can roll
We
right
are
into
going to
it.
roll. I'm going to call the May 25th, 2023 City of Watertown Planning Commission to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Dolly?
Here.
Hayes,
Here.
Valetsky,
Present.
Dargis Johnson,
Here.
Ford,
Here.
Hanson,
Here.
and Colhane, Spire, and
Frank.
Frank are absent. We have a quorum.
All right, item 3 on the agenda, an invitation for public comment, participants. if you want to address the planning commission on something that's not on the agenda, and we will allow you some time at the end of our agenda. Just need to let Brandy know. I'm going to move on to item 4, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Ford seconds.
Second by Ford. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I have item number 5, approval of the minutes mailed out for May 4th, 2023 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Blake. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ford. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. And now we are on to agenda item under our regular agenda item number 6A. Commission consideration of resolution number 2023-07, an amendment to the zoning designation for Lot 1 South Dakota Livestock Sales Company lots from I-1 Light Industrial District to C3 Highway Commercial District. We are going to be having a public hearing, and then the planning commission will have a motion and a vote to recommend approval or denial of this rezoning to the city council. Correct, Brandy?
Yep.
Brandy, could you give us some background on this?
Yes, thank you, Todd. So this is a rezone request by the city of Watertown, who is the owner of this parcel here. If you see on this vicinity map, along South Dakota Highway 20 and just west of 10th Avenue Northwest. And so this is simply a rezone request. It's currently zoned I-1 Light Industrial District. And we are proposing for it to be, or petitioning for it to be rezoned to C3 Highway Commercial. It does conform to the comprehensive land use plan and is appropriate, being that it is along a highway and this is C3 Highway Commercial. So to get some of that mixed use in here. And then as far as when the property is re-subdivided, a plat will be coming forward to the plan commission as well. And that the lots that are being subdivided will conform to the C3 district, which is the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. And altogether, this parcel is about 10.8 acres. And with that, I will stand by for any questions.
Are there any questions of Brandy before we open the public hearing? I just have one quick question. For my own ignorance, would you kind of just lay out the general location of where the proposed facility shop is, transportation shop is supposed to be on that map?
Yes, but let me remind you that
It hasn't.
it's to the south. Like, so this.
Right,
where
I
the
just wanted to get a feel for.
Where the street facility will go is still going to be zoned I-1 Light Industrial because that's more appropriate.
Okay,
So then this C3 district would be for additional development.
and how many lots, I mean, is the city looking at right now?
2.
2?
And that will be coming the next meeting so that we have it timed up at the same time that we can record the plat and that the zoning would be approved or whatnot.
And just for clarity, Mr. Chairman, there'd be 2 lots in the proposed C3 district and then a 3rd lot where the street facility would be going to the south in the industrial.
Would be the plat that would be coming before us.
Correct.
Right, thank you. Any other questions for staff before we open it up? So we are going to be now opening up the public hearing on this agenda item. The first, I'd like to call for proponents. Any proponents in support of the rezoning? Any proponents in support? Seeing none, I am going to now ask for any opponents, anyone that wishes to speak against. I see Mr. Roby, and I promised him 2 hours ago we'd get to him right away.
If the chair will, Mark Roby, 346 North Lake Drive. If the chair would allow me a little discretion, having sat at that table from 2002 to 2010 with Bonnie for at least a couple of years and Todd in the crowd. It was enjoyable to see you're still wrestling with the same kind of issues that I did, and the staff. What a wonderful job you're doing, and not easy. So my hat's off to you, and I want to commend you. I rise ask you to resist this rezoning request until the taxpayers of Watertown and the citizens that use that route to come to town multiple times a day, and as I've been doing now for 21 years, it's the most dangerous intersection I think we got in town. And it involves with too many weird entrances coming into. This is pretty similar testimony that I gave when we looked at moving City Hall out there. It's a safety issue. And I think you ought to consider rezoning once we understand how all those 5 intersections are gonna operate on a bended curve that has a height differential of at least 3 to 4 feet coming off 10th Avenue to the lot being designated for the rezone request. Are we gonna have stoplights there? Are we gonna have no stoplights and it continues to be a little bit of Russian roulette? As I noticed coming to this meeting, a little before 4 o'clock, I counted 7 cars coming in from 10th Street, the county road there that goes up to 14th Avenue, entering 10th Avenue, and then cars backed up 7 coming off 10th Avenue into Highway 20. And then, of course, the 5-lane traffic of Highway 20 north and south there. It's not a safe intersection. We need to understand before we rezone anything, how that safety is going to be addressed. We're going to level that out so it's not a Dukes of Hazzards coming off 10th across to the livestock. Are we going to lower that intersection or how we're going to do it? So I'd encourage you to resist on a safety issue that this rezone request and make sure the public can understand as we extend 10th Avenue across to the south of this lot that we can understand how that'll work.
Before you step aside, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Roby? The only one that I would say, Mr. Roby, is that if the planning commission and the city council chose not to rezone it, there would be, we all in agreement, industrial uses that could be situated on that property day, and the 10th Avenue situation would still be what it is. We're in agreement with that.
I understand that, but I think this is an opportunity for you, since safety is a purview of the plan commission. It ought to be, if it isn't, it should be in your bylaws. Sport. Since safety is a concern, you have a chance at the plate on this, and I would encourage you to use it. Whether it stays I-2, I'll be back if it stays I-2 and argue the same point. So why not get this out on the table and let the public know how this dangerous intersection is going to be fixed? I'm going to be talking to DOT folks that I happen to know to figure out how they could agree to a realignment of this whole intersection, because I think it's really a mess with what's being proposed. So, and again, I have traveled it for 21 years. It's not safe, and it isn't safe today, and this won't make it safer unless we do streetlights, and then the cost of those things need to be illustrated to the taxpayers.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak in opposition? Doc? Please state your name for the record.
Yeah, William Howard. And I have the veterinary clinic right there on Highway 20. My concern is if you rezone that C3, what will be directly in front of me to annihilate my vision for everybody driving down the road? I mean, am I going to be behind a huge building, or, you know? And also, why is the piece of land being rezoned? Is it for the city to resell for a profit, or is it for the city to build something of their own on those 2 lots?
I defer to this public works director.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So to the first point, I think Brandy's pulling it up. As far as the structure that could be placed in a C3 zoning district, that's going to have more limitations on sizing and massing of that structure than the current industrial zoning would. I assume that's where you were going there, Brandy, with your charts you're pulling up.
Yep. They do, so they have greater setbacks in the I-1 district. So, yeah.
But larger ability to build, or the ability to build larger structures in a current industrial zone than they would in a commercial zone potentially.
Yeah.
So the setbacks would have to be adhered to like in any zoning district, whether it's I1 or C3. So as far as being tucked up tight against the highway to obstruct any view getting out onto the highway, that would be minimized by the setback requirements for any building to go there. As far as the intent for the use, couple thoughts there. This is showing the comprehensive land use plan, which is our steering document on what things get zoned in the city as a mixed use of industrial and commercial. The city would intend on selling these lots off for development purposes. We've just executed a land trade agreement at the last council meeting to do so with a commercial developer that would like to have a portion of this proposed rezoned area for their business. And we would continue to look to market the rest of the land off to any interested parties.
Would they entertain a purchaser as it's zoned right now rather than C3?
I think
Someone wanted to buy it just like it is?
I think the city certainly would entertain that.
That's what I'd be interested in. Yeah. And also, if you look, can you go back to the other movie?
Oops.
Yeah, right there. If you extrapolate that line, that yellow line right there, and you go across, what size building could you put in that little tiny V? I mean, what's it worth to someone commercially, other than me, for my visibility to Highway 20? And can they put another access from the north? Still have that?
Yep,
There you
I'll
go.
go up here so we can do it more live.
When I purchased the two properties, the veterinary clinic from the sale barn and the place to the west, the driveway, I bought two easements. So am I still secured building there, or sell it to somebody that puts a big building and then use my driveway for approach? It's not very big area. Plus, I was told when I bought that 30-some years ago that that is a wetland, a slough. Is the city proposing to fill that in now? What are we gonna do with it? It's still a slough.
I'm gonna again defer to the Public Works Director.
Yes, absolutely. Before I respond, I would like to, remind the audience and the board that this is a rezone application, that some of these logistics that we tend to get into really do dabble into the realm of conditional zoning that we as a board, I would advise as a staff member, want to avoid. That doesn't mean we can't share information about intentions of development, but really the rezone application is just that. Is this land fit for the uses being proposed based on the permitted uses in our Chapter 21 zoning ordinance? And with that being said, no, the city has no intentions on filling that ditch section in. The development of that area would likely not access off of Highway 20 and likely be fed down to an extension of 10th Avenue. And I could talk to the 10th Avenue concerns too, but maybe that's better for a later moment.
How about we do that when we get to board discussion?
Absolutely.
We could ask his for staff.
Certainly. Was there another question I missed of yours, sir? I apologize.
Yes, there is. I don't remember what it was. I'm old. Yeah, the DOT access to the driveway. So that's off the board. They can't use my entrance for a driveway for some other business.
Unless there were some platted shared access agreement that's filed at the courthouse on both these properties, I would say no, that would not be allowed.
Okay, so if it's zone C3, I don't know what I'm zoned there for a vet clinic.
I-1.
So how do those get along? As far as I'm basically agriculture, I'm a veterinary clinic. I have smells from animals and as well as aerial truck line behind us. So how are we gonna get along if they rezone that? Put up a spa, I mean, whatever it is. are they gonna tolerate smells from livestock and
Well,
daily business after 40 years?
Well, sir, I would say this is, my canned response to this is that the C3 zone up against the highway is a natural transition zone to an industrial use closer. And so we do allow certain industrial uses even in the C3 zone, some lighter industrial uses. And so between those two, and the land use plan does show that this can be a mixed use development of both commercial and industrial. So from the ability for you to continue doing what you're doing there, selling that to me, and I end up doing the same business that you're doing there, you know, you've got a vested right to do what you want. Whatever moves in next door to you is not going to, might cause you some headaches, but it's not going to affect your ability to do your business.
And would the city be able to put a price on that before it's zoned? So that if an interested party wanted to buy it, he could.
I think that's a conversation for another time and not in front of this board, but I think you know somebody you can talk to about that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that wants to speak in opposition? Mr. Bach?
Hi, I'm Tim Bach from Merrill Truck Line. But I'm kind of with Doc and I'm kind of with this gentleman right here. He might have traveled that 21 years. I traveled a lot longer than that. Before you rezone anything, that man is exactly right. That place is a death trap. Before you rezone anything, I would like you to have a plan. The streets, what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do all this. And we are trapped to get into our property. Because we've had a 40-year, 60-year agreement, as long as we own that land, to get to our property. I want to know all this before you start rezoning to build all this stuff.
Mr. Bach, how do you access your property right now?
We go,
You could put up a picture
you
and
can see the road.
Oh, no.
Behind,
Oh, okay.
over by Doc Howard. That little road. Right there. We've maintained that. We've done it for 40 years. There's a gate there. That's how we get out back there.
I thought you just accessed it from the highway.
They have pasture land back there. that
Oh,
they
I didn't know
utilize.
that.
Yeah,
That's good to know.
it goes up at L shapes.
Yeah.
It's kind of,
Is there,
that place is kind of
is there an easement?
how long have
verbal
you,
agreement for
how long have you used that?
probably
So
4 years.
through inverse condemnation, if you had to go down that road, there would probably be an idea there. That's the only access to that lot.
Yeah, that's how we get there.
Well, if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes, yes, please.
I believe that lot does have physical connection to Highway 20, as Randy's showing there. We're not aware of any filed easements on our property that were found in the title search when the city bought that. Typically, for any access like that to continue, you would have to have some type of access easement memorialized and on file. That parcel to the south is where the new street facility is going to be constructed, where that pathway is shown on the aerial there.
But that's not part of this rezoning request there.
Correct. Just the triangle to the north is
Yeah.
part of this rezone request.
So Arrow Trucking comes right there, comes back and they drive back through there to access their pasture ground there. Okay.
What part of ours touches that rezoning deal you want us to issue?
How did that work when the sale barn was there?
The road's always been there.
Sale barn was to the east of the road.
But isn't there some law somewhere that after so many years, if you use a property in a certain way and nobody writes you a note that says, I don't grant you authority to use this property any longer, that inherently, whether it's registered or not, you have the right to use that property in that way? I believe there is. there's a time frame in there of some sort.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of specifics with that.
I think when we're probably going down, I understand the issue, but it's probably not germane to the specific rezoning at this point. It does become an issue upon plating and the design of the development. I would say that'd be correct.
Yeah, definitely an item that our city attorney would have to take up as far as any legalities of the city owning a right of access through our property. That's definitely an item that the city attorney would have to take up.
Right.
But back to what he's saying is, you know, the development on 14th Avenue. If you people would go out there and watch this in the mornings at 4:30, you got the airport traffic, you got all this housing coming down 14th Avenue, you got 10th Avenue. It's a miracle that there's way more accidents there is now. I mean, it's bad. For us to get out, access with a truck, it's dangerous. One of these days they're gonna go right through the pot. And I'm surprised it hasn't happened in 40 years. I'm really shocked because we got good drivers. That's one good thing. But it's dangerous.
Right.
And I really, you can rezone it, like I get it with Doc saying too, I agree with him too. But before you do it, I think you should have him, whoever's doing that engineering, how you're gonna redo that curve, I have no idea. And you know, there's a drainage ditch there and everything's at an angle. And anything that's on an angle and trying to access that is absolutely, it's bad. The only good access is by the Stockwoods. Not on the north side.
Right.
The south side.
South side.
And I told some of the city guys already, you put that street going there, you're gonna have trouble.
Thank you, Mr. Bach. Is there anyone else that would want to speak in opposition to the request, or not the request, but to the rezoning? Last chance. All right, I'm going to be closing the public hearing and open this up to board discussion. We will bring staff involved if there's questions amongst the board that maybe need some further deeper dive. I do have a question for staff from the perspective, while I think it's important about transportation and safety, I also know that we have laid out a plan to have this property rezoned to C3, and it's been in place for many, many years. The question I have though is, what kind of studies have we entertained DOT? Has there been a full review of potential change of use impacts and what it would do to the transportation effectiveness of that intersection? I'm asking you guys, I guess.
So being in the very preliminary design stages of a street facility, there have been no transportation impact studies performed. The traffic generated from a use like that, frankly, wouldn't trigger the need for a traffic impact study based on our design standards, nor the DOT's standards for that matter, along a state highway route. I guess that's the short answer to your question, Mr. Chairman.
There hasn't been anything done yet, other than DOT's been contacted about what your proposed uses or potential uses could be and accessing the intersection of 10th and Highway 20. They're aware of that.
Correct. We have given them a proposed layout of what the 10th Avenue Northwest extension would look like running west into this property. It would extend west, straight west into this property, right in line with the existing road to the east. We've talked to them about the existence of the curve there, the presence of the curve. We've talked to them about the south 15 acres being utilized for a street maintenance facility and the amount of traffic that would generate. We've talked to them about the proposed commercial development that would go on the southeast corner of that triangle and the amount of traffic that would generate. And they have not had any reservation on an extension of 10th based on all that information that we've shared. The other point that I'll add to that is they and we also agree that an extension of 10th there to channel any development on that northerly triangle down to that 10th Street into one point of access on Highway 20 is much safer than 3 or 4 separate accesses going along Highway 20 as those lots develop in the future. So the expectation would be that any development in that northerly triangle would not have access onto Highway 20, but would have to come down to 10th Avenue and access Highway 20.
And so and one last question on the road, and then we'll get back to the zoning. Is there any conversation about signalization at that intersection that's being necessary based upon at least the immediately intended projects that would be going out there?
Yeah, that was discussed at length with the DOT as well, and their regional traffic engineer through some, again, the information sharing on our anticipated development, and then even future or potential development of that triangle area, knowing what the zoning could be. They can assess anticipated traffic generation counts from that proposed land use. And they've ran those numbers and do not see an indicated trigger to require a traffic signal at this time. I know that the perception is that one is needed, but that's the response we've gotten from the DOT at this point in time, based on the information at hand today.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff regarding any of the issues that have been brought to the hearing?
When they're not doing it, you don't think that there is a problem already? Because when you come up on 10th Avenue past the hospital, 10th Avenue, and you go into Highway 20 and there could be 4 or 5 cars lined up and you're trying, some are turning left, some are turning right, and you can't see really close until you're way out in the intersection to make a left-hand turn. And so now you're committed and you're making that left-hand turn and you're going down. And I mean, on icy roads, it is something else. And now you're gonna have, who knows what it's gonna go into there, and whatever it's gonna be is going to generate more traffic going down, and it just doesn't seem that. And then they're coming in from that trailer court and stuff, and then the highway department for the county. I mean, at certain times of days, there's cars just backed up.
Yeah, and if I could liken this point of access to any one of our 3 major highways that we have in the community. We've got the rest of the extensive Highway 20 that runs down where it connects to Highway 212. Of course, we have Highway 81 that runs the north-south extents of our community. And of course, 212 that runs the extents east and west of our community. And I guess frankly, I can't speak for the DOT, but they manage the access on those state highway routes. And if you look at any one of those highways, the sheer number of access points that they have is astronomical compared to this section of Highway 20. And so if we can help them minimize all the additional access points on Highway 20 by having one point of channeled connectivity through 10th Avenue, that's one of the reasons why I believe that they think it would be favorable. We're eliminating a Highway 212 scenario where you've got an access every 50 to 100 feet coming out onto that highway. The speed limit, of course, is another consideration to give this area. Right here at this point where 10th would be extended is a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, speed zone. There is potential, maybe likelihood that where that 55 to 35 transitions could be pushed back further northwest, so that we're slowing traffic down all the sooner, all the earlier as traffic comes into town. I believe that's one of the points of contention that many people observe when they drive this route, is that people simply aren't slowed down to 35 miles an hour by the time they hit that curve. So by pushing that speed limit transition back further northwest is another way to help curb that concern, where you truly do have people coming through this area at 35 miles an hour. Which makes it then all the more comparable to some of those other areas I just spoke about on our other highway routes. The slower the traffic, the calmer the traffic, it obviously creates safer intersection. That's nothing we've entertained with the DOT yet at this point, but logically speaking, from an engineering standpoint, that's definitely a possibility that could be part of the solution. Only part of it, but a part that I wanted to mention.
Thank you.
Ford has a question or two. First of all, the safety issue. These are a lot of great proposals. We'll talk to this person, we'll talk to that person. We might get the speed limit lowered or have fewer access points. But at this point, you're asking us to rezone this with the potential for higher traffic without any answers to those questions, just proposed questions. And the second thing is historically, we have tried not to patchwork zone. And now we're going to have a C3 in the middle of I-1 attached to R4 and A. I mean, it goes against the philosophy that we've always worked under. I thought that we don't patchwork. And that C3 looks to me like a patchwork.
And
If I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
So the point of a rezone, creating higher traffic, that's simply not a fact of matter today before the board. We do not, we can't say that the I-1 current zoning district has less traffic than the proposed C3 zoning district would. Somebody could build on I-1 and create a lot more traffic than a proposed C3 zoning could create. It all depends on what's built. So again, my expression to the board would be this rezone application, just like any one that we get, should not be conditional based on the what ifs of the improvements and the uses that could go in there. It should be based solely on whether you believe this land is appropriately used according to the A to Z list of permitted uses in chapter 21 and or some consideration to the conditional uses in that C3 section of chapter 21. When we get into if a road's going to be built, if a drainage ditch is going to be filled, if a bar is going to go here, if a salon's going to go here, we're turning this into a very easy case of conditional zoning, which is not legal. And I just want to emphasize we're focused on the zoning here tonight for the board to consider.
Thank you. I would just want to reiterate that I do agree that the other issues that are being brought up are important. I believe they will be addressed at some point in time as development is proposed. I go back to the point that, yes, I do have concerns regarding safety, but I also know that we have a land use plan that has identified this area for mixed use. I think there's 4 different maps. One map says that this can be used for mixed use, which is commercial and industrial. Map 58, map 57. And then I think there's supportive text language within the land use plan that supports the redevelopment of this area as well. So I don't necessarily call it spot zoning when you have a land use plan that dictates your ability to do that. I do think that there will need to be a deeper dive to address adjoining property owners' concerns when potential plats and access and those types of things get brought up. But I think, in my opinion, that this is probably a reasonable request, and we would give it the same look-see that we would in other sort of situations.
This is Ford again. Well, I think that's true. From the city council meeting last week, it appears there's an agreement in place to swap this land, and we know what's going in there. Something that will produce traffic unless the agreement doesn't go forward, and I'm assuming that it will. So we know what kind of traffic, even though we shouldn't know, because it's coming from the back end forward instead of front end to the back. We know what's going in there. I've been by those stores and I know what kind of traffic they generate. So I am concerned about safety. Now, we shouldn't have that information yet. I think we could proceed on a C3 here if we didn't know that, but we know that. We know what the plan is. We know what kind of traffic. Sorry if there hasn't been a study. We know what kind of traffic that particular business will generate right there at that dangerous intersection. So there's no talk about how are we going to fix the safety when we know it's imminent. It's not a maybe. We know it's coming if the land swap goes through and they put that particular retail establishment there.
But I could also take the 10 acres today. I could put an industrial use on it and employ 200 people. And that would have that same amount of cars and traffic coming out from off and on that property at, concentrated times. So I think it's a horse apiece in that argument.
That's theory, Todd. You're right. They could, but that's not what's going to happen.
Well, but
We know what's going to happen. You don't have to talk about theory. We know the fact.
DOT regulates.
I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, sir. Go ahead.
Well, Brandy's oftentimes thinking some similar thoughts I do, which makes us a great team in the workplace. With no diminishing of any of these concerns of safety, I want to very reverently speak to the fact of the planning commission's role here. And the design of traffic components is simply not one of them. That is the DOT's jurisdiction. They hire professional licensed engineer to manage their highways and their routes. The planning commission is not in place to get into traffic signal, traffic intersection, roadway design considerations. Very reverently, I just wanted to reflect that, your role as a planning commission is to administer the Chapter 21 zoning ordinance and ensure that the uses that we're assigning our parcels of land in our community are appropriate. And with all due respect to the concerns, that's where we need to have faith and sound confidence in the people that are put in place, the city engineering staff, the DOT engineering staff, at all levels that will look at this, analyze this, and approve those pieces of infrastructure. Again, very reverently, I say that, but I felt it needed to be said.
I appreciate you saying that. And yes, as I said earlier, look at the black and white and try to follow that. So I'm really struggling with this. So in the Plan Commission directive, is the word safety included? I don't have it in front of me. I can't look.
I don't either.
Within the enabling legislation from the state of South Dakota, it says that have the ability to adopt zoning to affect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And that any ordinance that is developed by a community has to have a recommendation from the planning commission. So ergo, I think there is a connection regarding the planning commission's ability to look at safety. I don't know if but if we also have directive within enabling legislation that we also develop a land use plan and you follow the land use plan. And so that's kind of another, so if you're weighing things, that's what you have to weigh, I guess. And then you're just gonna have to make a gut decision on whether or not you support the rezoning to support the proposed uses that could happen in that specific zoning district, or you're okay with the I-1 and the uses that are allowed in that district. But betting on the come, we don't know what's gonna happen on either one.
And the bottom line is, we're not the final say. The city council is the final say. So we can argue uses and safety all night long.
Right.
But we still have to have a basis for our decision.
Mhm.
And I guess personally, my bottom line is always safety.
Jason or
I
Blake? I don't mean to
appreciate that.
cut you
Thank
off.
you so much.
Yeah, I don't mean to
No, that's
cut you off. I just want to see if Jason or Blake had a comment. I'm sorry, Brandy, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I've been trying to jump into at least touch on the spot zoning or the patchwork comment of Diana's. So typically we refer to that as spot zoning. But spot zoning is a very vague term, and this C3 and I-1 are transitional zones. This is a 10-acre piece of property. That's a large piece of property where we have minimum lot size requirements for these different districts. So C3, the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet. So if you have a lot and you have transitional zoning, it should be considered to be rezoned. And I don't like the term spot zone is vague. So, and this is a different scenario of it's 10 acres. So in I-1 and C3 are completely appropriate to be transitional zones.
Thank you, Brandy. Jason or Blake, I haven't heard anything. You guys have any comments?
Yeah, I can chime in here. So to me, and again, I kind of agree with what you were stating, Todd. We're looking at the rezoning in front of us today, and I'm going to defer to the land use plan in terms of we've identified this area for mixed use. It's immediately adjacent to the highway, and in our long-term comprehensive land use plan, it's aligned to zone this type of area with either I-2 or the highway commercial. So I do think that this is appropriate zoning specifically, regardless of some of the other concerns that are certainly valid for other aspects of the conversation here. But the zoning itself, I think, is appropriate.
Thank you. Jason, any question, comment?
I guess I don't know what a lot of times when we come to these meetings, it's the fear of the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to be developed. We don't know how it's going to change the traffic. I guess at this point, my struggle is what's the sense of urgency to rezone this today when we don't know? Is there an active buyer that we need to change or is going to fit into a C3 better than an I1? We aren't always privy to know kind of the background and some of the things coming. I guess that's what I struggle with. We've had a lot of discussion on safety and traffic, and again, knowing that's not maybe our prime responsibility. I guess I am struggling with the sense of urgency of why we need to push this through at this time. If that's a city council issue, they're going to override. They're going to make that decision. They maybe have more information than we do.
If I could, if the commissioner's done. To the point of the concern of the information, I'm trying to articulate my thoughts here on the discussions with the DOT. I want to stress a little bit further that this isn't a gosh and bagali, I think this, maybe that. This was a detailed discussion with the DOT about these zoning districts. And that's exactly how a traffic impact study would be performed. You look at the anticipated uses on any barren land and the proposed street network and how it would connect to the existing network. And there are tables in the traffic capacity handbooks that tell you how much traffic generally this type of zoning would produce. And they plug those into the equations to figure out what kind of traffic flow at this intersection would result from the proposed land uses. Those are the kind of details that the DOT engineers and the city staff engineers have vetted and looked at. So I don't want to leave the impression that this was a guess and bagali and maybe this and maybe that. This was not a formal traffic impact study, but as formal as you can get at staff level of the DOT and staff level of the city engineers that assess those things.
And to address the sense of urgency, there is not necessarily any rezone petition. This is how you guys do receive them. It's just the petition to start development.
Rhonda?
Again, because we're all throwing our 2 cents in there. So if you look at that triangular piece, and we know, I guess, if we know anything, like Jason said, we know we're going to put a street department there, or at least that's the intended plan. And my problem with going with the C3, and just like everybody else, the traffic, but now if we extend 10th over there, and that's how we're going to have snow plows coming out, we're going to have blades coming out, we're going to have, a lot of heavy street equipment. And again, we share the street when they're out plowing. I mean, don't we all go stay home until the streets are clean? But we are putting commercial where maybe we don't really necessarily, you're coming out with a big blade and, the guy swings a little farther than he meant to and gets a little car that was going into the commercial or the business there. It's just, to me, that might be kind of a strange, we're trying to get our street department away from residential and away from the high school. And now we're putting them right back into a controversial situation by putting a commercial building there. Whereas if I owned a business or a semi trucks where I have only a few things coming in and out along with the city trucks instead of a retail establishment, that would be my argument to not zone that commercial. Now, the rest of Highway 20, I agree, it should be commercial. From the street department all the way south should be C3. I'm just wondering where we make 10th Avenue the main access for our street department to get out to clean streets and do their maintenance. We're now throwing the public into their work area, if that makes sense.
Okay, I am going to give one last parting shot. Is there any last comment before we take this to a vote? We have a motion to approve yet? Yeah. Let's back up. Let's back up. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve resolution number. What's number, Brandy?
2023-07.
2023-07, and a motion to approve, please.
I'll make
I'll
that
make that
motion,
motion.
just to get the discussion going.
Motion by Bonnie, second by Blake. The motion, if approved, would recommend to the Watertown City Council that the Planning Commission was in favor of the proposed rezoning from I-1 to C3, right? Or not C3, highway commercial.
Yep, C3.
Okay. Last board discussion, anything, any parting shots? Okay, I'm going to ask you to call the roll on this as opposed to doing it by a voice vote because I think there's probably
Sounds good.
some consternation.
Sounds good. All right, Alexi.
No,
Jarvis Johnson.
No.
Case.
I'm gonna vote yes, just because of the comprehensive land use plan.
Ford.
No.
Hanson.
No.
Dolly.
Yes.
The motion to recommend approval to the city council for the proposed rezoning fails on a motion, on a vote of 2 yes, 4 no. All right, next item on the agenda is open public comment. Anybody wanting to address the board? Seeing none,
Signed up.
any new business before board, Brandy?
No, none that I have.
Any new business from the board itself? Anybody got anything? Any old business, Brandy?
None that I have.
Board, any old business? Any need for executive session?
No.
Then I will close the planning commission. I'll adjourn the planning commission. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Sorry for the rough ride there.
Thank you all.
Have a great night.
Thank you, Todd.
You say anything from the board, it sounds like board.